There he is. And we're going to be sharing with you all what we've been talking about and what our plans are going forward as far as continuing to think and plan. So you can see here that the other members of our team are Alan Heimer, who's counting this morning. Lori is here, and she's taking notes for us this morning. Darren is working at his other church this morning. Elizabeth Trainer is traveling, and Pastor Heidi is here. So that's kind of, we're small but mighty part of the team this morning. So, our first meeting was trying to figure out what we were supposed to be doing. We thought, well, we want to think big. We want to think about what this could be now that we are a merged community. How do we live into that? But could we do that before the congregation has discerned our vision? Like, how do we know what we're going to need if we don't know what we're thinking of doing? But if we don't know what we could do with what we've got, then how do we help guide the vision? So we spent a long time, like, what are we doing? Can we do it before this happens? Can they happen at the same time? So we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure that out. Like one full meeting, we just were like, can we do this? And then we decided that we'd start by just saying, well, what if? Just super big. And none of these things, I want to emphasize this, none of these things are things we are saying we should do. All right, these were just high in the sky, big dreaming, big brainstorming. Everything goes on the brainstorming list. Don't take it off because you think it's not practical. You just throw everything up there. So we said, well, what if we refurbished our current space to create a safe and accessible sanctuary in Mexico? Well, what if we sell the Crown House to help finance that refurbishment or rebuild it? What if we converted the Crown House into some kind of transitional housing for families in need? What if we tore down the Ed building and built a multi-use community space? What if we tore down the current facilities, all of them, and started anew? Remember, we're not suggesting anything. What if we partner with someone to do a complete redevelopment? Like just reimagine this whole site in a completely new way? What if we partnered with another congregation or the synod to turn the Crown House into a vicarage for a local pastor? What if we built a tiny home shelter on the unused portion of the property? So we were just throwing everything out there. And then we said, well, that's a lot of stuff, and that's a lot of really big dreaming. So let's sort out some of our ideas. Although that list I just shared with you was just a small portion of our list. We had like 2 pages of lists. So then we started sorting them out. And we sorted them into categories. What if we keep the property, just not sell any of it, but just refurbish it? Like, just fix it up. And then the other categories that some of these things fell in was tearing down everything and rebuilding. Another one was partnering with somebody else. There have been a couple of local ministries that have asked, would you be open to partnering with us? What if we decided we just don't want to be here anymore and we sold it and we moved somewhere? Because that was kind of another bucket. So we're kind of putting these into buckets. What if we do nothing and just keep going like we are, just fixing things as they break, and just right of our buckets? And then we had to take those buckets and we had to winnow this down. We had to start actually looking at those big pie in the sky things and say, what do we really think? Is this going to be something that we think could serve whatever vision the congregation comes up with? So we narrowed our options down, and we want to give the congregation time and opportunity to discern what God is calling us to do next. Also understanding that there are current property concerns that have to be addressed. And so we just recently had to redo a bunch of the electrical because there was a problem with that. You know, they're still working on the ceiling in the women's bathroom. There is a problem with the siding out here. So knowing that there are things that we do need to manage with our property, we kind of also wanted to balance giving time with, if we discerned that we were going to, which I don't think we will, but to say, if we discerned that we were going to tear this building down or sell the property, that would change what we do about the emergent issues that we have. So we wanted us to kind of do that balance. Give us time to discern, but also make sure that things continue to be okay for us to do our ministry after that. Please feel free.
You're doing great.
Just to address the sense of, there's a little sense of urgency, on some things when they come up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm on pink.
Oh, pink. Pink. Okay.
Just addressing the sense of urgency when things come up.
Says
Still not on? Oh, I guess you have to turn it on. I'm not used to using these mics. Just the sense of urgency when things do come up, balanced with giving us time to discern together. So trying to find that sweet spot. It wasn't really, it was just the same way of saying what she said.
But no, but it's tricky, right? Because we are finding that there are sort of large ticket items that are coming up, like the electrical, that have to be dealt with, because we like to have the lights. We like to have the engine work and the heat. So we wanted to be sure that we were managing our stewarding our resources in the best way. So I'm not asking for questions now about anything besides, do you understand the process that we went through? Everybody's nodding. Okay, that's it. All right. We'll give you opportunity to weigh in on other stuff. So then we just kind of look at looking at that big picture, we set out some goals, and this is where we're going to ask your feedback. Do you think that our goals are reasonable? Do you think we've missed something that's important as we go forward? Do you think that we're completely wrong-headed about it? I mean, that's what we're trying to find out pretty soon. But we looked at all of that and we said our goals are to address the deferred maintenance, right? We need to be sure that we have a safe place now to be in. To create a safe and accessible space. We know that there are some accessibility issues with parts of our campus. So we want to be sure that whatever we do in the future, whatever we end up with, is going to be safe and accessible. We want our worship space to be enhanced. There are some, again, safe and accessible, sometimes climbing the stairs is a little difficult. So how can we make sure that the space we are worshiping in is really good for worship? We would like an attractive, welcoming, and accessible entrance to wherever we are at. We don't want people who can't climb up the stairs to our entrance. We don't want them to not figure out where our entrance is. We are as bad as some congregations. I go to a lot of churches as part of my role with the synod, and sometimes I'm walking around all the way around the building trying to figure out where the entrance is. We're pretty good here, but that's a goal for
If
us.
we're meeting here, but when we meet over there, and we have guests, they don't know where to find us. Yeah, it's very good.
We think it would be good, just practically, as Pastor Heidi has noticed, as we've done things, that it'd be more helpful to have a reception space near the sanctuary. So like after a memorial service, or after some kind of special event here, sometimes people get lost in the cross, or that we lose them. We lose people when they have to go across and up the stairs and around the building. To lose them. We lose people when they have to go across and up the stairs and around the building to get into over there. So we thought it would be nice to have a reception space in the sanctuary. A kitchen able to accommodate the needs for a reception. I mean, currently we have a very beautiful, wonderful kitchen. It's not real close to here, so if we're having something in here, we have to haul dishes and plates around. But regardless of what we end up with, we want to have a kitchen that's able to accommodate our needs. Accessible bathrooms, and that's not just handicap accessible, like having a large stall with, but just like some of our bathrooms have very low toilets, some of you are aware, and it's kind of hard to get in and out of that. And so we want those to be accessible. Offices closer to wherever our activity space is. So right now, like if we forget something, like if we had forgotten something for this presentation, then we have to run all the way across to the Crown House and up the hill and around and back down. So we were thinking it'd be good to move the offices somehow closer to wherever it is we're doing the bulk of our activities.
And I would say also on that one, to make it less isolated, like for our church secretary, or pastor having up there as well. It is isolating. So.
And that's a safety issue,
Right.
Especially in the winter when it's dark and our lights might not be working in the parking lot. And energy efficiency. We have a call to be good caretakers of creation, and so we want to be sure that, whatever we're doing in our building, that we are being energy efficient and being aware of those kinds of issues. So those are.
Oh, we've got the number.
Oh, the state will not be here. You guys are kidding. I think that's just always a good goal to have your roof not leak on you. And there are parts of our roof that could stand to be pitched instead of flat. Because the water pools and then.
Or last winter, if you were sitting here, you might have gotten drops on your head just in this particular location.
Yeah, the school I used to work at, there was one locker that whenever it rained really hard, they couldn't figure out where the water was actually coming from. But wherever we have a really hard rain, it would pour into that locker. Just that one locker. So we had to not let anybody have that locker. Yeah, so don't sit in that seat. No people in this pew. Not okay, so we thought these were broad enough goals that whatever we end up deciding, if we can have a space wherever or however we accomplish that space that is safe and accessible, attractive, energy efficient, dry, all of those things would be good. And there are lots of different ways we can go about it. So, this is what we are thinking of as our next steps. So, Pastor Heidi mentioned, as soon as we're done here, which is why I'm kind of going a little fast, we are going to go up to our Redeemers in Ballard, and they are a merged community, like we are a merged community, and they did an extensive remodel of their space, and so we're going to go up and see what they did, what they took into account when they were planning to do that, what benefits, what drawbacks. So we just want to find out from someone who's done this process, what they did. Several of our members are signed up to attend the ELCA Accessible Spaces webinar, which is happening tomorrow, I believe, to find out. It's called Creating Accessible Spaces on a Budget. So just like, what should you be looking at when you're trying to make your space more accessible? So I don't know if you all know that Elizabeth Trainer, her job that she does is about accessibility at the university. So she's very interested in making sure that we are accessible. So that will be happening tomorrow. We need to start thinking about what kind of budget we can have for planning. Once we start narrowing down our options and thinking about what we might like to do, like what does our budget going to look like for that? Maybe talk to some architects that have church experience and tell them we would like an accessible, safe, welcoming space. This is what we've got. What would you suggest? Like, what are some ideas that you might have? And we might talk a little bit about one of the things that kept coming up was that the Crown House can be made into its own plat. And we don't have to include it in anything else that we're doing. And there is some thought about, well, what if we just sold it? So that would be a conversation we want to have with the congregation. If we build out office space here, for example, then we wouldn't need the Crown House, and the Crown House the space might be better used in the community by someone else who would like. So those are kind of what we're thinking of. And now, so there's, Pastor Heidi's going to bring this around. So before we get too far into this, though, I just want to say I know some people need to think, and some people prefer to communicate in writing. So we have feedback sheets, and so if you would like to have a sheet to write your thoughts on, Lori will pass them out. She's also going to take notes of what you all say today, and we'll have if you all remember when we were doing the transition team had a mailbox out there to put notes and thoughts in, so we're resurrecting the mailbox. It's out there, so if you go home after this and you go, wait a minute, what did she say? I have some thoughts about that. You can still write your thoughts, and you can bring them next week and put them in the mailbox. Okay, Lauren.
Being part of my job where I work, I'd like to make sure that this is addressed to maybe in our goals, that all of our safety equipment is regularly checked. We have regular maintenance and check on that, especially like the AED batteries, and make sure all our safety equipment is visible as well, so that we know that if an emergency comes, we know where to go and it is available to us.
Yeah, well, we can add that, we can certainly add that as a goal, but like property management, that is one thing, like batteries, the smoke detectors, all of that type of fire extinguishers. Yeah, that's on our annual list, but good for calling it out.
I just had a comment that my hometown church in Wenatchee is almost finished with their renovation. They basically renovated everything except the sanctuary, so and had a lot of the same goals, I think, of bigger space, more welcoming space, more accessible space, redo offices, all that kind of thing. And so my dad's been on the planning committee, so I've heard a lot about it. So if you need, I realize Wenatchee's far away, but if you want pictures of the space or anything like that, is another idea. I know that they're should be finished up this winter.
We can even ask you to come to our committee and tell us about some of the things they learned.
We can do a Zoom.
Yeah, we could definitely do Zoom. That's great.
Yeah.
The more resources that we have, the better.
Grace Lutheran in Wenatchee.
Anybody else?
We could even take a field trip.
Good try.
I was just gonna say that I think the accessibility piece is great and timely as the congregation ages. I did think that some of the other things you have on your list could be accomplished much cheaper than a complete remodel, like signage or greeters if we know we're gonna be somewhere else, that sort of thing. So, I know it's a process, but I would hate for us to just jump into big bucks when we can go low bucks. And that seems a physically more responsible way to go. I also wanted to kind of comment that, or question, are you closely connected with the property committee? Because I don't see anyone on the committee that.
I am, yeah.
Oh, Todd, you are now, okay. Because I
And
think
Alan,
that's a vital connection to have with people on that committee who have
Yeah,
caretaken.
both Alan and I are longtime members. So.
Okay, okay.
And I guess just to kind of reaffirm, and Kay had her turn, the range is nothing to, something extensive. And none of that we haven't made any decisions. We have no proposals. And all of that would be through a very thoughtful process with obviously engagement from all of you. We wouldn't even begin to go down that road until we had affirmation from the congregation that that is consistent with our vision, where we want to head.
We are still in the gathering information phase. Audrey?
I was just wondering if there are specific deferred maintenance items that you can specify that we're aware of already?
Well, I probably can help with that a little bit. I mean, we have many ongoing regular challenges with our flat roofs, right? I mean, this building was constructed in the 60s. It was predominantly church labor and others more here. But I do know by the legacy and everything. So, I mean, that is the cheapest. Back in those days, flat roofs are cheap. And so basically everything back above the fireside room and the bathrooms, our little annex that used to be the church office over attached to the education building, I mean, all flat roofs and all historically have had issues with leaking over time. The electrical issue that we had more recently was not anticipated, but we are, with the age of the building, we're going to have some of those things that aren't necessarily on our radar because they're a little bit of a tick time bomb type of a thing. We've incrementally done some changes to siding where we have water egress come in. Back in the fireside room, we have this section over here. So the roof in general, I would say, is something. Our furnaces, knock on wood, have been pretty good troopers, but at the same token, at some point in time, that's something that's going to have to be, addressed. Are there any other big ones that I mentioned?
the other one is that the ceiling is, the insulation, there isn't any
There is
insulation.
none, yeah.
And so we lose, it's not very efficient. And for example, the Ukrainian church, when they meet here in the afternoon in the summer, they turn those fans on and then all that heat just comes down like an oven. We don't experience that in the mornings typically because it's still cool. But you can imagine any other users in this space, which we hope the space would be able to be used by others. We also have all single pane windows. And so the efficiency part of it is not, we need to upgrade that for sure.
And I would say that, as you mentioned, we would like, maybe another one of our goals is that our facility is able to be used by others in the community, that we can share it with the Ukrainian church or other events if this is a place that can be a gathering place. So the other thing is, next week we have the congregational meeting to bring more closure to the preschool, and so that will lead us to the questions of then, what will we do with that space, right? Because it will no longer be being used for preschool. it's a great, big, wonderful space. So what kinds of things can we do with that so that it's not just sitting unused, because that will not be good for the building either, right? Because we have to think about that space as well.
We've also thought about versatility in the spaces. You know, that this is limited in the sense that Sunday mornings it gets used, or by another church that can be seated in pews, but are there if other people wanted to use the space, it's not very versatile. So there's some conversation about that, as well as, you know, how can we make all of our spaces more versatile so others could use them as well? Because building sanctuaries towards the future is tough, right? I mean, we look around even at the age of our church, we see the ever shrinking church. And so to build a space that can't be used towards the future by others, is that the best stewardship? If it's limited, is that the best stewardship? So these are just some of the noodlings we've had.
I would say too that we had a really great, I thought, really great turnout for the Christians Against Christian Nationalism class that Pastor John did for us. And we met in the fireside room, which was nice and cozy and pretty good, but it's not the ideal place to have a class, right? So would we be able to have places that are, I mean, maybe it would be in the education building that has classrooms set up, but like how could we use our space when we have something like that we want to sponsor and share with the community that would be big enough to bring community members into in a comfortable and welcoming way.
Parking lot too.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's just walking over for some people can be very dangerous. And, but especially for people like my mother and other people who have to use either wheelchairs or walkers.
Yeah, our parking lot is a little like.
Yeah, the asphalt is aged, we try to address it, I mean, we patch it, we address all the known sidewalk issues around the perimeter of the buildings, from a safety aspect, so but there's no question, you know, if anybody has a spare, let's see, I had asphalt poured out of my cabin, I'm gonna say $80,000 to $100,000 laying around, we could get it repaved, so.
But that's the other question, right, is if we decide to expand on, if we were to decide to expand on this space, then that would be a different amount of parking that we would have to work around. So all of these things have sort of cascading effects that we want to think about.
And it hasn't been brought up, but I don't bring it up on probably Jerry's behalf, but she sees most of it. So as we also know, you know, we have an open campus, and so in the world we live in, that means people can visit at all times of the day and night, and with all kinds of different motivations and things like that. So that's the other thing that we didn't list, but we should probably put on the list of, from a security perspective, how do we address that? The flow of people. We want accessibility for the right reasons, but we also don't want to have our facilities be candidate for people that don't have the best interest.
Any other questions or comments? Did people get the pieces of paper when they went around? If you had more to offer at this stage?
So we clearly just begun, right? And we are just, like, again, gathering information. So we are really open to your thoughts. So if you go home tonight and you go to sleep and you wake up and you go, they should be thinking about this. They didn't say that. That's an important thing. Please let us know. We are sure what we're going to be called to do as a community of faith in this area. So if you are thinking, well, we are going to need to do a lot of outreach, like we want to do a feeding ministry, then kitchen is gonna be more important, right? If you are thinking, well, we want to be a housing ministry, then there might be something else. If you're thinking, we want to be the best place in this area to come and get amazing worship, that's gonna be different things. So we don't know where the congregation is going to land, but we want to think regardless of what we want to do and be in the community, we think that the goals that we set out, and some of the ones you guys have added, would be important regardless of what we end up doing. So that's kind of.
And I think the other, and this is my opinion, this isn't coming from the planning committee, but I think we want to be mindful about I'll say the sustainability of whatever we decide to do. And I think of Lakeridge. I mean, I've been up there over the last 30 plus years. I don't know how many times I've been up there doing meal type things. And you look at that congregation now, and I'm guessing I don't know what their active membership is, but it can't be great. And yet they have this ministry there that it would be nice to see it thrive a bit more if they had the resources. That would be another example of partnering where we could partner with someone else to do something. But my point is, whatever we decide to do, I want our mission to be thoughtful about that. We don't do this great launch and then say, well, hopefully the new people that come in are going to be able to sustain it. It has to be something that we can support, we're all on board, and there's a thought process that would say, yeah, this is how it could evolve.
Right. Has to be a little bit of a long-term plan in it.
Right, this is why we're a long-term plan.
Yeah. The other thing that has not been said that is, the elephant in the room is there's almost $3.5 million in the bank from the sale of the property. And so whatever we do has to be thoughtful about how that is spent down, interest, other ways in which we take into account where money comes from, funding streams for anything that we might do. As an example, the sale of replatting and selling part of that property off. Capital campaigns, things like that. So those are things that we're not just going to sit on this money. That isn't very faithful. That's not good stewards of it. And keeping it for ourselves. So some of that will start to get talked about in ways that we break that up or think about that together and how that gets utilized and what part doesn't for a period of time for the sustainability aspect of who we are as a congregation.
I think one other piece that we didn't mention, and it's kind of an elephant as well, is that we are now a merged congregation, right? We are Nativity, we're Cross and Crown, we are Living Hope, but we are still residing in Cross and Crown's space, right? And so we've started to take some small steps to have things that are Living Hope, just so we have the communion center, right? That was provided, it's new because we are new as a merged community. And so thinking about how do we look at the space now as our space, and how do we, and all of it, the money from the sale of the property of Nativity, and the resources that reside in the Cross and Crown, it's now our Living Hope's resources and space. So how do we as Living Hope want to utilize this? And so that's, people might have different ideas about that, and people certainly are going to have historical memories about things that were important to us that came from Nativity. And we thought, well, we think we should have this kind of thing in our worship because we always had it at Nativity, and I'm sure there are still things from Cross and Crown that are the same way. And so even though we're fully merged, we still have those separate histories. And so we kind of have to be aware of those and be kind to one another as we start thinking about what are ways that we are living hope. So.
And numbers wise, roughly, this is very rough numbers, but roughly a third of the people that are coming on Sunday morning are former Nativity, a third are Cross and Crown, and a third are Switzerland. as we called them so affectionately. So it really was a merger of three bodies, sort of, in many ways. That's kind of the way I've started talking about it, is when you have 40 people that have joined the community in the last 3 years, that's another part of this body that's as large in some ways as the other two that came together.
Which I would just want to say is not often what happens when congregations merge. If you remember way back, the data that we got from the Synod and from the ELCA said when there's a merger or a consolidation, you can expect to lose X number of people. And we gained people. I mean, most of the people that we have lost because they have died or they have moved out of the state or across the mountains or something. And we've gained the Switzerland people, the people who saw how we were doing something cool here and wanted to join us. So we are an example of a very successful merge, and we want to keep that being a very successful merge. So we're trying really hard to have all voices at the table.
But I think another interesting observation, we talked about this in transitions, is that, you know, Cross and Crown was not growing before. Nativity was not growing before. But we've combined, and now we're growing and have added people. I bet you we could check the numbers, and that plus 40 may have been the cumulative from both churches over. You might have to go back 10 or 15 years to get those kind of numbers.
Right.
So there's something specific that together we are better, together we are stronger. So we want to be mindful of that as we go into the future.
Holy Spirit is doing amazing things, so we just need to be good at listening.
Closing thoughts? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for sticking around.
It's a great beginning, I think. And thank you so much for all the time.
Thank you.
Interview time. Yeah, it's called Our Redeemer's Balance.
Yep, not really long range, just it's practice.
And it's like, excuse me.
You may have, I don't know, but maybe we'll start doing this, say, okay, take this space, envision all this.
You're right.